Welcome to World War II. In this unit, which takes place between 1939 and 1945, we will explore the causes of the Second World War, what the war looked like on multiple fronts, major battles, and how it came to an end. Today, though, we are going to learn about the rise of dictatorships during the Great Depression and how these dictatorships would ultimately lead us right back into war only a short while after we'd ended the First World War. And as you are listening and taking notes, your focus should be on the following essential question. How did dictatorships rise to power during the Great Depression? It's important to make connections between the Great Depression and World War II, as the Depression led to the war, and the war ended the Depression. So obviously, we need to take a moment before diving into fascism to look at how exactly the Great Depression affected Europe at all. In our last unit, we learned that the Great Depression began in the United States and was a terrible time for all Americans. What we really didn't get into, though, is that much of Europe was just as badly impacted. Post-World War I, many countries borrowed money from U.S. banks to help themselves rebuild. And when our stock market crashed, those U.S. banks called European countries to pay back their loans, which they could not do. This led to economic downturn across Europe. Looking at this map, we can get a sense of the Depression in Europe. Among other things, Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia were the hardest hit, with an over 30% decline in industrial production. Countries colored in light green saw an up to 30% decline in production. This meant decreased income for the country, as well as increased joblessness for its citizens. We can also see from the bar graphs that Germany saw the largest number of unemployed citizens in the first half of the 30s. All of this is to say that when a country's population is struggling, and these countries were certainly struggling, it creates unrest and is an opportunity for a change of power. A dictator is a ruler with total power over their country, typically one who has obtained their power by force. As I said before, the ideal time for a dictator to achieve this control is during a period of economic turmoil. During these times, the public is more willing to go along with extreme ideas if they believe that the country and themselves will benefit. And dictators are believers in fascism, a political philosophy, movement, or regime that lifts nation and often race above the individual. Fascist regimes stand for a centralized autocratic government led by a dictatorial leader. They are characterized by severe economic and social control and the forcible suppression of the opposition. The first fascist dictator we need to know about is General Francisco Franco. Franco, a Spanish general, rose to power in the early 20th century through his leadership during the Spanish Civil War. After the war, Franco, with the help of Germany and Italy, established a dictatorship in Spain, becoming the country's absolute ruler. During World War II, Spain remained neutral and did not officially join either the Allies or the Axis powers. However, despite its neutrality, Spain did support the Axis powers in various ways. Spain supplied resources like tungsten to Germany and allowed German submarines to refuel in Spanish ports. Additionally, thousands of Spanish volunteers fought on the Eastern Front alongside the Axis forces. Franco was once quoted as saying, "We do not believe in government through the voting booth. Spanish has no foolish dreams." Benito Mussolini rose to power in Italy during the 1920s by forming the Fascist Party. He promised to restore Italy to its former glory of the Roman Empire and establish a dictatorship. This was popular with the masses as Italians struggled with the Depression. Mussolini's aggressive foreign policy led Italy to join World War II on the side of Nazi Germany in 1940. Italy's involvement in the war brought hardships to its people and ended with the fall of Mussolini's regime in 1943. In a speech to the public Mussolini was quoted as saying, "Let us have a dagger between our teeth, a bomb in our hands, and infinite scorn in our hearts." This is a really good representation of Mussolini's views on international relations. Adolf Hitler, also known as Der Führer, is the infamous founder of the Nazi Party. He rose to power as a direct result of the sanctions against Germany after World War I and the compounding effects of the Great Depression. Millions of Germans were struggling and without jobs, and the German economy was shrinking. Hitler blamed everybody else for the struggles in his country. Fires in Reichstag were supposedly the fault of communism, and the Jewish community was a scapegoat for all of the country's economic woes. Promising to restore Germany to its former glory, he became chancellor in 1933 and quickly consolidated his power. Hitler's aggressive foreign policies eventually led to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. Hitler was so well liked that he was actually Time magazine's Man of the Year in 1938. Switching gears a little bit, communism is a system in which goods are owned in common and are available to all as needed. It is a theory which advocates for the elimination of private property. Joseph Stalin, a communist, rose to power in the Soviet Union after the death of Vladimir Lenin in 1924. Stalin's leadership was marked by a strong control over the country through policies and a 5-year plan that led to industrialization and collectivization. During World War II, the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression pact with Germany and invaded Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Ultimately, though, the Soviet Union played a crucial role in the defeat of Nazi Germany on the Eastern Front, along with the other Allied powers. Stalin once said, "Ideas are more powerful than guns. We would not let our enemies have guns. Why should we let them have ideas?" During World War II, Stalin's son was actually taken prisoner by the Nazis. Hitler threatened torture, but Stalin refused any ransom or agreement. His son would go on to die in prison. So while many often view Russia and the Soviet Union as not really being on the side of the United States much of the time, during World War II, Stalin suffered great personal cost to remain on the side of the Allies. The last dictator that we are going to learn about is Hideki Tojo, a general in the Imperial Japanese Army, who rose to power as Japan's prime minister in October 1941. As a key figure in Japanese militarism, Tojo played a significant role in leading Japan into World War II. Under his leadership, Japan sought to expand its influence in Asia through aggressive military campaigns, such as the invasion of Manchuria, China in 1937 and the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Tojo's policies and decisions ultimately contributed to Japan's involvement in the war and its alliance with Nazi Germany and Italy in the Axis powers. Even after its massive losses, Hirohito remained Emperor of Japan until 1989. So what was it about the Great Depression that allowed these dictators to take such solid control of their country during this time period? How did these dictatorships lead us into World War II? And how did World War II lead us out of the Great Depression? Take a moment to reflect.